Hi, it's Mary Luehrsen, Executive Director of the NAMM Foundation, and we're here at Facebook Live at our great friends at EnterTalk Radio, coming live from the NAMM show on Saturday here in Anaheim, California. We're also coming to you from Talking Up Music Education, the podcast of the NAMM Foundation, and I'm so honored to be here with Sam Gronseth, who's here from Paradise, California, a city that many of us may know from some very recent and tragic events where what percentage of the town was lost in the
About
fire?
90% of the
About
homes.
90%
Yeah.
of Paradise, California was lost in the recent fires that went through. What are the other towns where the fire?
So Magalia, Inskip, and so there are a few other towns that are around there, but mostly that ridge area.
All neighbors of Paradise. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we all, this resonated with us wherever you were in America. We felt for the tragedy of this community. And also, you are a career music educator.
That
right?
is absolutely
Right.
true.
So
Yeah.
before we talk about what you've done in the aftermath of this, of what's happened to Paradise, California, and the surrounding communities, and what's happened to you, and why you're here at the NAMM show, let's talk about your music education career. How long were you a teacher? Where did you train? Where did you end up serving as a music teacher?
So I went to Central Washington University, Washington State, and a community college prior to that really got me started. Similar to the Eric Whitaker story, I didn't read music when I started music theory. And so I had a teacher who just latched on to me and said, hey, you're going to have to take piano lessons from me. You're going to have to do theory. You're going to have to do this. And I remember him calling me one time at home, and he said, so we took this music theory test, and you did really well on this, but you didn't do well on this. You have to know this in order to know that. And so he was trying to pick my brain and figure out what I didn't understand. And he just did a great job of taking someone who just didn't know a whole lot and putting a lot of knowledge into him. I appreciated him a lot.
So that was in your early days or in your college days?
Right. So college days, and I went to Central Washington University, which is an education college. They had a great music program. Then I taught for 5 years. I went to Cal State Fullerton, and I've been teaching that for 34 years.
Yeah. And mostly in Paradise? Is that where you
Yeah, I taught in Chico for 8 years and then moved to Paradise.
Okay. And always choral music?
No, I taught elementary music, so I taught strings, band, choir, classroom music for 22 years, and then moved to the high school, not really of choice, and I really loved doing the elementary part, and it took me a couple of years to accept my high school assignment, but then there are a lot of advantages to that, and so I really enjoyed it and enjoyed the kids.
Right, that's great. And then along the way, you were also president of the California Music Education Association.
Yeah,
right?
so
Tell us about those years.
I've always been a fan of teachers and teachers continuing to develop their educational skills, and so that got me involved in the local Music Educator Association, and then ended up taking me to the state level, and I ran for a few elections and ended up winning.
Yeah.
And so I ended up working with really some fantastic people, and I think that is the best aspect of working with that educational organization, as well as probably any other association, is that you really have an opportunity to work with the cream of the crop, with people who come up with great ideas. And
people are very motivated by
Right.
the profession, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
motivated teachers.
Yes, yes.
And I should tell you that the leadership of the California Music Education Association for the last several years has met at the NAMM show.
Yes,
You
yeah.
may be aware, and I think you've been here as part of that,
Yes,
right?
I have.
And the development of Stand Up for Music initiative, and now the NAMM members are gratefully going with that group to Sacramento on state level lobbying.
That's great.
So,
That's
it's like how our worlds come together. So, and then you officially retired. Is that correct? A year and a
That
half
is true.
ago.
A year and a half
You
ago.
decided to cash it in, as they say in teachers, when you can start collecting that wonderful end of career
Yeah.
benefits that can be available to you.
Well, I still do some consulting, and I decided if I was going to have any energy to develop that consulting business, that I really needed to step away at that time, and it just seemed like the right time to make that happen. I miss the kids and the groups tremendously, but I guess I'm right back in the middle of it now, huh?
And yeah, we'll talk about that. You sure are. And then you also have been conducting a community choir, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah, church choir and a community choir, and the community choir is probably age 70 is the average age in there. There are kids in there, and there are people who are 101 today, as a matter of fact.
wow, isn't that remarkable?
Absolutely.
Well, let's come right up to the current moment. All right. So thank you for that background, and also thank you for all that you gave over the years, decades, to the field of music education and strengthening it here in California. But you've done something pretty exceptional at this juncture, and why you're back at the NAMM show. So I got the email, I got the call right around Christmas time, and then you and I had a chance to chat. And it was on the 27th of December. So first of all, let's talk about what you've gone through living in Paradise. What happened to you?
Well, on November 8th, Paradise, fire came upon Paradise, and it just swept over the whole community. And as we already said, 90% of the homes in Paradise burned. And that included mine and two other members of my family. My situation was I was actually teaching a junior high choir class, 0 period in the morning, and the kids started coming in saying, "Hey, Mr. Gronseth, it's really cloudy out there. I think it's smoke." And so they were all animated about that whole thing, and they're junior high kids, so I didn't take it real seriously. And then I started looking out the window, and it started getting darker and darker and darker. And so I went outside and looked, and then parents started coming and picking up kids, and I sent the rest to the gym with the administration. And I headed home because I'm a horse owner, and I could see that it was a serious situation. And so I went and hooked up the horse trailer and got a couple of things out of my house, put them in my truck. And my neighbor across the street was standing there waiting for somebody. I said, "Bob, they're not coming. They're not going to be able to get here. You need to get in my truck." So Bob and his 4 dogs and I drove through fire on both sides of the truck.
Huh.
And running over, having embers just come down on us. And it was interesting, but it wasn't unusual. A lot of the kids that I work with and a lot of my friends went through that exact same situation. Really a life-threatening moment-by-moment situation.
Yeah. Yes. So you found safe haven?
We did, yeah. Ended up.
And the animals too, the horses?
Yes, yeah. They did okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then the house burned, and so then you're without a home.
Right.
And all the valuables and things and musical instruments and clothes, all that stuff is gone. And so you look at starting over in its own unique way.
Right. Well, for you, part of starting over, which kind of hasn't started yet, right? I mean, you told us you're living sort of with friends. Hopefully the horses are living with friends too.
Well,
right?
the horse is living with friends, but not in the same house.
Right. So, I mean, the beauty of friends and community that really do come and fill gaps, and it's kind
Absolutely.
of the miracle of it, right?
It is.
But then you've created another version of a miracle. Tell us about what you did for the musical life of the many of the high school students that were sort of displaced through all of this.
One of the administrators called me after all this had happened, and school was out around the area for quite a while, for about 2 weeks. Even in the areas that weren't impacted directly, school was out because so many people had, all of a sudden, 25,000 people ended up in this community extra, And so traffic patterns and home patterns, and maybe 12 people living in a house, all the motels were filled. Everyone had to,
People were displaced.
they were completely displaced
Right.
without
Yeah.
any of their belongings. And so the stores ran out of all these things. Anyway, an administrator called and he said, so it'd be a great idea to pull together some choir kids to help heal our community. And so I was the right guy to do that. I was retired. The other teachers had all the teacher stuff that they had to do. And so I said, yeah, I'll take that on. And so we got 5 schools together. And you have to kind of remember that these kids aren't in the school system anymore. They might be displaced to Portland, Oregon, or to San Francisco, or somewhere in between, because they had to find housing. So they might go live with their aunt or their uncle or their grandpa or their whoever would offer them housing. And so we we chose 3 songs. I contacted J.W. Pepper and they said, we'll send you 200 copies of the music. And so they did right away. And we put the recordings online, and so the kids could practice right from their phones. And got them all music, and then we got together for 1 hour, and then we went around and sang to all the schools that were most impacted in our area. And there were
Before Christmas, just before Christmas.
yeah. And there were 140 kids
In the choir.
in the choir that participated and loved participating. A lot of those kids were kids whose houses had burned. And some were, everyone was affected because everyone was from that area.
So then we got this phone call at the end of December, and you said, I think I would like to order a whole bunch of buses and hotel rooms, and could I bring these kids? Many of them were music students, music technology. We heard that this morning.
Yeah.
Young gentleman asking us about the recording of the.
Yes.
And I remember on the phone call, I said, Sam, are you sure you want to do this? Because, taking kids on the road.
Yep.
I did it when I was a music teacher. I know
Yep.
you've done it. So what are we doing here at NAMM? What's happening? How many
Well-
did you bring, and what are we doing here?
So we brought about 135 people, about 117 performers. And we had chosen 3 songs, and we really love the opportunity to sing for anyone, maybe to bring up the plight of the people in Butte County, but also to inspire healing. That's really our main goal with the kids. And as you know from directing groups, it probably affects and impacts the group more than it does the audience. But you need both in order to make all of that work. And so the kids all got together, and they love singing together, and really some outstanding, amazing musicians who have a great future in front of them. I love taking the opportunity to expose the kids to the things that are here at NAMM. A lot of great performers, plus all the music products and all the people that are around, recording situations and microphones and guitars and everything that might inspire them to continue in the music profession. And I love exposing them to that. Not very many opportunities like this would come up. And so my thought was, let's take these kids that have had so many struggles recently in their lives and maybe try and put a bubble of inspiration in there somewhere.
Well, they certainly inspired us. We started out our day with our grand rally and singing with Eric Whitaker, and your choir was right in the front.
Yeah.
And I was moving into the backstage area, and I looked out, and they were singing. I could hear your choir. I mean, there were a lot of voices in the room, but that choir was a force coming back up on the musicians on the stage. It was wonderful. So
They love to sing, and they really enjoyed Eric's presentation.
Yeah, we
They've
had a
done-
wonderful time.
They've
Didn't
done
we?
music his before, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you could tell they were. So we're so happy that we can be part of their journey to what's next and your journey for what's next. We know it's hard, but your optimism and your strength is really very, very wonderful.
Well, thank
And
you.
what you're doing for your community, because you don't even know what's next for you now, right? You're
Ab-
not sure.
Absolutely not.
Right.
I'm planning to rebuild in the community, and but there are a lot of unknowns, and people can make plans, but they can shift
Right.
and adjust within
But
moments.
But somehow I believe that no matter what happens, there will be a community choir up there,
I think so.
right? I mean, I just, I think with your energy and maybe others will share in that, in the work of doing that. So we wish you so well, and we thank you so much. I'm so glad you made that phone call.
Well, I'm glad you responded. The teachers and the administrators that have come along with us just stand in awe of the opportunity that the kids have. And I think it's so great for everyone involved. Thanks to NAMM for helping make that happen.
Absolutely, and we want to stay in touch with what
Excellent.
happens with all of you
Great.
in Northern California, and we hope that the winter season brings some relief to that moisture that's so much needed in that beautiful part of the country. So I'm here with Sam Gronseth from Paradise, California, and the remarkable work that he's done with the Butte. I'm saying it correctly.
Butte Strong United Choir.
The Butte Strong United Choir from Butte County, California. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for joining us here at Facebook Live via EnterTalk Radio from the NAMM Show and Talking at Music Education, a podcast of the NAMM Foundation.